The difference between scrambling and thriving in your consignment store could just be one most boring thing ever, and that is planning a whole year of sales and events. Now, I know that that sounds extremely tedious. We are creative. Not only are we entrepreneurs, but we're in the retail space. So we tend to be more spontaneous and creative. So sitting down to plan just one detail-oriented event sounds probably like a lot. But asking you to do a whole year, I know that it sounds mind-blowing. I'm telling you, after 14 years in this industry, starting with doing this inside of my consignment store, and now after the last 4 years, hosting 4 different planning workshops, teaching over 400 consignment store owners how to use this planning method, I'm gonna give it to you. So my 5-step planning method on how to plan an entire year of sales and events that will leave you feeling confident and like you're able to walk and talk like the boss that you are. So here's the reality. Think about yourself at 1 a.m. You can't sleep. Of course, you're thinking about business, and you spend 5 minutes thinking about your next sale or event that you need to have. Then maybe the next day you go into your store and you spend 10 minutes talking it out with an employee who has no business background. And that's about the gist of it. And then maybe you spend the next 20 days procrastinating, getting the event planned and set into place. Does that sound familiar? I know that absolutely happened to me. And not only that, but what I was finding is that my employees would come in and be like, hey, I see that holiday is out at Walmart. It was there this weekend. When are we putting ours out? And what I found is that I was caught off guard every single time. So either I came up with the idea, but I couldn't get the motions into place fast enough, so I always felt behind. Or my employees would catch me off guard with, when is this next thing happening? And then I still felt behind. So either way, what was happening is I ended up feeling unprepared, very behind, caught off guard all the time. And that really made me feel and look not so great as a boss, right? It's because they were thinking about things before I was, or I was bringing ideas to them, but not following through with them. So it ended up being that I didn't feel like the true leader and boss that I was meant to be. And not only was it affecting, my relationship with my team members, but it was also affecting my customers and my consignors, because they're relying on me as a business and as a retail storefront to have holiday clothing released at, a great time, a particular time, so that their items would sell, and that, we were on trend with different holidays and events and sales, so that inventory kept moving. And so not only do you have, kind of the weight of your employees on your shoulders and how they perceive you and how they're being led into being a great employee, but also you have the community behind you who is really relying on you to keep up with, the retail calendar, which is very different from reality. We all know that, let's take a holiday, for example. If we take 4th of July, we all know that as a retail store, we cannot just put 4th of July, items out, red, white, and blue on 4th of July, right? We have to think so far in advance. So retail planning is so different from, just our standard calendar. And we have to come up with a method to be ahead of it so that we're not feeling constantly behind. So right now, I'm going to teach you my 5-step planning process. And at the end of this, if you do the exercise, all 5 steps, you should have an entire year planned of sales and events. Now, the only thing that you need for this is a blank calendar of the current year that you're in. So I'm just gonna show you an example of mine from my previous planning workshop. I hosted this in November of 2024, but we planned out the year 2025. So we like to think ahead, but whatever month you're in right now, you can still go through these 5 steps. So even if there's only 3 months left of the year, you can use these 5 steps to plan those 3 months out. This is just how we do it every year in this business, so that I can take a lot of store owners through this planning process together. And then it's great to get in that habit. So if you think, in November, I need to do a planning workshop, or you can join me for mine either way. So grab a calendar, grab a pen and paper or just write down these 5 steps. You can download, a calendar later, and let me go through the 5 steps with you. All right, so the very first step in our 5-step planning process for consignment store owners is going to be looking at your school and community calendars. So this is kind of a 2-step process. The first thing I want you to do is pull up your local school calendars. Now, typically, whenever we are in a planning workshop with a bunch of store owners, what I hear is all of my adult consignment stores or everything consignment stores or furniture consignment stores, they like to say, I'm not children's. It's like, do I need to do this? Do I need to map out school calendars? And I say absolutely yes. There is a natural foot traffic flow that happens within your community, and it changes drastically depending on whether schools are open or closed. So it's really good for us to keep a pulse on the entire community, which includes children. So even if you are an adult consignment store, I would vouch to say that some of your shoppers have children. And if they're grandparents, sometimes they help with babysitting, and you might think, why do I have nobody coming into my store today? And it might just be because schools are closed or there's, something happening. So we need to kind of notate and keep an eye on that going on in our community. The second thing that we're going to look at is our community's calendar. So typically your city, bigger cities at least, will have like an event calendar, and they will, say things like, do we have a Christmas parade every year? Is there a fair that happens? Do we host bigger events that happen in your community every year? So here's the gist. You're going to open your calendar, and if you want to plan the entire year, you'll start with January, and you will just open up the school calendars, you'll open up your local community calendar, and you will just notate these things on your calendar every single month of the calendar year. And then when you're done doing this first step, then flip back to January, and we're gonna start with step 2. All right, step 2 is all about holidays. This is my favorite one because holidays are really easy to plan a sale or an event around. It's kind of like a built-in way to do some marketing. And most months of the calendar year have some kind of holiday in them. So it's really fun and easy to fill up your calendar with holidays. So let's look, there's 4 subparts that I really want us to pay attention to. And if you're doing it planning workshop style, okay, this is how we do it in the planning workshop, is we actually will take one point at a time. So we will go January through December with 1 point, and then we will go January through December with point 2, then we will go January through December with point 3. It doesn't matter if you combine them or not, but just to go through the motions like that, it just helps you not skip or forget anything. So kind of the sub point 1 here is just to look at each holiday and determine whether you're going to have a clothing release for them. So if you accept clothes and sell clothes within your consignment store, think Valentine's Day clothing or accessories. Or let's think 4th of July clothing or accessories. So we want to have a holiday clothing or accessories release for those, and we're going to determine when those are going to happen, when the release of that holiday's clothing and accessories will happen. And then the second point here is that you'll determine whether you're going to be open or closed for that particular holiday on the day that the holiday is happening. Think about Thanksgiving and Christmas are holidays that a lot of retail stores will close for. The third one that you want to determine is whether you will have a sale or an event or something fun, right, for each of those holidays or not. Don't skip that one. That is one that's so easy to create more events for. So, we don't all the time need to give away more sales because we are already discount stores. So it's really awesome to be able to think about these holidays in the form of events instead of just sales. And then the fourth kind of subpart that I want you to pay attention to is the markdown schedule. So if you did have a holiday clothing or release for that particular holiday, you will want to mark those items down before the holiday happens so that you don't have a ton of leftovers after the holiday passes. This is maybe a fifth one that is you could pay attention to or not. Look at the national list of observances. So they're not federal holidays, but maybe something like breast cancer awareness. If there's something special that you want to do for a national observance, you could treat it just like a holiday. We really focus on the federal holidays in our planning workshop, but I did include a list, and I won't do that for this video because that list changes constantly. So for the purposes of this video continuing to work for years to come, you can do that exercise on your own. But right now, what I'd love to show you is just an example of me putting those 4 main pieces of the holiday on an actual calendar. Now, I want to warn you that I'm going to show you a picture of my planning workshop calendar where I was not only teaching, but I was scribbling down everything that I was saying, because I like to go through the exercise with my store owners who are taking the workshop with me. So that way I have an actual calendar that is set through the year, so that if they come back and ask me a question about a certain holiday or when did we plan this, I have the answers there for them. So I'm about to show you my handwritten, very sloppy, jotted down calendar that might not make much sense to you, but I think it will be a great visual of how you can actually do these 4 steps for each holiday. So let's take a look at that. Okay, here it is in all of its glory. This is my very scribble scratch handwritten calendar. We have, as an example, the months of January and February 2025. Like I said, I hosted this planning workshop in November, and I do that every single year in this business for store owners. And so anyways, let's pick one holiday. So I'm going to pick Valentine's Day, for example. So here on my calendar, you can see Valentine's Day in the yellow box on the 14th of February. So the very first subpart that we just looked over was just to determine if we were going to have a clothing release for that holiday or not. And for Valentine's Day, we absolutely do. And so we are going to look at January here, and you can see that on January 2nd, then we determined that that would be our clothing release and accessories release. So you can see that right there. And then the second thing that we need to determine is whether we're going to be closed or open for that holiday, and we decided to be open. But you can see that there's an additional holiday in the month of February on the 17th, President's Day, and we said closed for that one. So you can see both examples, one that we determined we would be closed for and one that we said we would be open for, right? All right, and the third kind of subset for this holiday is whether we're going to have a sale or event for this holiday. You can see that during the week of Valentine's Day, starting on the 10th, we're going to do Valentine's Day hearts, and then on the 13th, we're going to have a Valentine's Day social post. So it doesn't have to be big, but I want you to think that both of those things aren't giving away a discount. It doesn't have to be a sale or discount. We are already technically a discount store. So you don't always have to give away more money. And then the fourth part of this holiday, kind of this subsection here, is that we're going to determine a markdown schedule. So we are actually going to start that in January, is what we determined for Valentine's Day for the year of 2025. So we started 25% off on the 25th of January, and then we moved to 50% off on the 1st, and then we went down to 75%, and then after Valentine's Day, we're just going to clear those clothes and accessories from our sales floor completely and move on to the next holiday's release. All right, we're already on to step 3, and step 3 is going to be planning out 4 major seasonal blowout sales. Now, something that I use to talk about our sales when I teach my store owners seasonal inventory management inside of Four Corners University, we talk about how to manage inventory seasonally. I really love to teach my store owners to accept all seasons at all time, and then have one of these big blowout clearance sales followed by a release of the next season. This really helps with those low sale months like January and the June, July, summer months, so our J months. It really helps to spread out the love of sales in those months. It also helps us to put our inventory out when other big box stores are doing that. So let's just think, about spring. And when does your Walmart, Target in your geographical location, when do they put out spring clothes. And we want to mimic that. Otherwise, we're just giving all of our purchasing power to them. Our buyers are just spending their money with them instead of with us. So we really like to put our clothing out, put our shoes out for the current season about 2 to 3 months before the weather actually hits. So it is much earlier than you think it is. And so planning these 4 quarterly sales around your seasonal release is exactly what you need to do. And then between the blowout clearance sale and the release, sometimes we have store reset days. So that is what we're going to plan for. The blowout clearance sales really help us to clear out the inventory that's been on our sales floor for longer than 90 days, anywhere between 60 and 90 days, just so that we have fresh current inventory coming in and we're getting rid of the old stuff because we definitely have enough new stuff coming in the door. And then another part of this 4 blowout clearance sale that we like to mark on our calendars are our tag color switches. Now that is part of seasonal inventory management, a system that I teach inside of my membership. So that's maybe very specific to that. But if you are running some kind of markdown schedule or you have tag colors in your store, you'll just want to mark those on your calendar so that you know when to change to the next tag color. All right, step number 4, we are almost there. So now we have community events and your school stuff on the calendar. We have holidays and sales for every holiday all marked in and filled in. And we have our 4 big blowout clearance sales and releases set to go on our calendar. Our calendar is actually looking pretty full and decent at this point. But now what I do in the planning workshop is I provide my store owners with a list of 85 plus. It is a running active list that I add to every year of sales and events that are completely described for you in detail. So we go through this sales and events list together and we fill in the gaps. What we want to do is we want to have something happening every 2 to 3 weeks on our calendar. So if there's a gap, like maybe let's say between July and October, we tend to need to fill in some places there in August and September. And there's many other places in the calendar that we do that, but we determine do we have something happening every 2 to 3 weeks that we can do some marketing for? And what we try to do is we try to plan events first, sales next. We always want to gear more of it towards an event because we're a discount store, right? So we're going to go every 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to pick something from our sales and events list and we're going to insert it into the calendar so that for the whole calendar year, we have a sale or event happening at least every 2 to 3 weeks. That might sound like a lot, but your customers want you to be the party. They want you to be the thing happening in the community, always something to talk about, always something going on at your store. It creates a lot of fear of missing out, and they want to be part of something that is thriving and new and fresh. So think that this is a major foot traffic and sales driver for your store. All right, step number 5, we are there. So the very last step in the planning process is now you want to determine when you're going to start marketing for the sales and events that you planned. Some sales and events like the 4 big blowout clearance sales, you'll definitely want to order some paper flyers for. So we would mark on our calendar, when are we going to actually start marketing for these events? Are we going to start marketing 10 days in advance, 2 weeks in advance, a month in advance? There are cases where that would need to happen. And so we want to write down when to start marketing for this. And if we need to order supplies for these events or sales, then we would want to notate that also on our calendar, just so that we can be fully prepared when it comes to the sales and events that we've planned. It's one thing to plan them, it's another thing to put them into action. So if you go a step further and get the marketing in place and get when to order the supplies for it, you're just that much further of a step ahead into putting you into action to actually do the event that you planned for. And there it is, you have done it. That is the 5 steps to planning your entire calendar year of sales and events. And when you go through one step at a time, so you'll choose step 1, you'll go January through December, then go back to January and start step 2, then go back to January and start step 3. So you really go through the calendar 5 different times. And by the end of the 5 steps, you have a full-blown planned out sale and event calendar specifically for your consignment store. Now, if you want access to that 85 plus sales and events description list that I mentioned, it is in Four Corners University. That is my membership built just for consignment and buy outright resale store owners. If you want to join, you get access to that immediately. There also is a recording of the planning workshop itself for each year that we've done it. Now, those are 5 to 6 hours because we go through each step and then I give my store owners time to implement. So you physically see me on the screen. Like, let's take step 1, for example, these school calendars. On my screen, I literally pull up my community's school calendars and I'm telling you my thought process. Okay, I'm writing this down here. This is why. And so my store owners in the workshop with me are doing it with me as well. So if you watch the recording of the planning workshop, you'll really get to hear me talk through the reasonings why, see the sales and events that I'm choosing and where I'm putting them and why. And so you'll get a lot more out of it if you just take the entire workshop. That will take about 6 hours of your time. I know that this is not the most glamorous task. Planning out a year of sales and events can seem a little bit daunting, but I hope that this exercise will at least help you to get started. If a year seems overwhelming to you, then plan out a quarter using this 5-step process. So I really hope that this information has helped you further your business, your consignment business. And if you would like my help, come join us at Four Corners University.